Hello, everyone. My name is Tavoya Conover, restoration coach and creator of the Healing the Father Wound framework. And in today's episode, I want to talk about what is a father wound, right? I shared my testimony and the first video that I put out on how God healed me, broken at 12, healed at and restored at 35. And I want to talk a little bit more on I want to define what a father wound is, because it can sound pretty heady, bit ambiguous. You're not quite sure, like, Toy, what are you talking about? What are you talking about, girl? What is a father wound? So a father wound is how do I say, I want to say this as plainly as possible. So first let's define this as plainly as possible. So what is a wound? It's something that happens after an injury has occurred. So something outside force has come in and disturbed something that was at rest during it, and then after the result of the injury, there lies a wound. So just like if I was a little girl, I was riding my bike, I fell off, I scraped my knee, what would remain behind? But there would be a wound, right? And so a scrape is a pretty shallow wound, but a wound nonetheless. So we use this medical terminology to help you relate a concept that you may not be as familiar with something that we've all experienced, right? Many of us, I dare to say most of us, have incurred an injury in childhood where we were running and partaking in the fun activities of childhood and we fell, hurt ourselves, injured ourselves in some way, and then we are left with a wound. And so this can happen in your life emotionally as well. So when we speak of the father wound, we're talking about a little girl, typically, right? Or it could be an older girl, a girl who's going about her life, developing, engaging in life's activities as planned, and then her father does something to interrupt her life at its normal course of events, and that injures her, and then his leaving after the injury leaves a wound. So we want to give you some examples. So there are varying degrees on what a father wound is, but I was explaining in the first video, my curriculum and the way that I teach healing the father wound is from the basis of a biblical understanding. And so with that being said, we take the Lord's example, the Bible's example of who a father is and what a father does. So, okay, the role of a father in a family is he is to mimic who God the Father is to we as his creation, his children. And so God is very intentional. And so he chose the role of a father and a husband to mimic the hierarchy and the way that things are run in the heavenly kingdom, right? So God the Father is the head, and he's protector, and he is love, right? He is good, and he is the provider for all mankind, for really all creation. But in this instance, we're talking about human and God relationship. So he is the provider for all of us. So he chooses to mirror that through the role of the father. And so a father for a little girl is supposed to mirror this, right? This is God's design. He wants the dad to show this daughter love. God wants the dad to show her love, unconditional love, just like God gives us unconditional love. He wants him to be there to provide security and protection. Have you ever seen a little girl who is, her and her dad are like this, and she just looks at daddy and he just picks her up and she looks so safe and secure. That is by design. That is by design. And then the third thing that a dad is supposed to do, what a father does, is he provides affirmation. So he speaks life over this little girl. He tells her who she is. He how do I say this? He confirms her identity, and he says, you belong, you are good, you are mine. She has a sense of belonging, of worth, and affirmation in who she is, because she knows whose she is. So that's unconditional love in a non-sexual context, right? That is affirmation, that is security and protection. And then finally, number 4, he will tell her, oh my God, you are so beautiful. Once again, affirming her, but this time in her exterior as well as the interior of her, that she is a beautiful person. And that is healthy for a little girl to want that. Have you ever seen a little girl who may have on a very pretty dress, and the dress kind of twirls at the bottom, and she'll say, daddy, daddy, look, and she'll take her dress and she'll twirl around. And if this is a good father, a godly example of a father, he will say to his daughter, oh baby girl, you are sweetheart, precious, angel, some loving, right, pet name, and he'll say, you're so beautiful, you're so pretty. And how many of us as little girls would have loved, if you didn't have that, would have loved to receive that from your dad, to say, oh my goodness, baby, you are so pretty. And so those are the 4 things that a father is supposed to do. These are legitimate needs that little girls have. So little girls need to be protected. They need to feel unconditional love in a non-sexual context. They need to be affirmed and have their identity spoken over them, and know that they belong and they have intrinsic worth and value. And they need to be told that they're beautiful and that they're pretty and feel beautiful, and to be complimented on their physical and internal beauty. So these are the 4 legitimate needs that a girl has. But when your father is, 1, absent, maybe never there before, or he's emotionally absent and you see him but he doesn't engage in these 4 ways, or if he is in and out of your life, where you have these natural, beautiful, God-given needs, you will develop a injury, and in terms, a wound. And so through the series that I'm going to be doing, we're going to be talking more about what these wounds look like. How do we know that we have one? Like, how do we identify it? What does that look like? But before I go, I want to say again, if you have not had the fortune of experiencing these beautiful and God intended times in your life with your dad, you're not alone, right? There are so many of us who are going through this, especially in the United States. I don't know where you're watching from, but I live in the US, and my population specifically, we've been impacted by this greatly, but also in the United States, divorce hits across so many demographics. So that could be African American, Caucasian, Hispanic American, largely impacted. I think the only ones that are really not that impacted are the Asian community in the U.S. that's not been impacted by divorce and absent father birth. So you're not alone. I want you to know that you're not alone. If you're saying, well, Toy, I never had any of this. This is not my story. My dad never watched me twirl in a dress and say I was beautiful. I never felt protected. I always felt insecure. I never felt safe, or you're not alone, and you should have. And if those are some things that you've not experienced, that is a telltale sign that you, my dear, may have a father wound. And we're going to talk about it. So we're going to identify it, and we're also going to talk about how we heal from it, because it's not a chronic diagnosis that you are going to be stuck with this for the rest of your life, the rest of your duration, as my grandmother says. No, this is something that we can heal from, and a journey that we can walk through together. And I've done it. I've seen other women do it. I've walked women through this process. I've walked teenage girls through this process. So it is possible. There's hope. We're going to talk more about it. So I'll be doing a few more of these series. We'll be talking about how to identify it, how it shows up in your life, how it can be sabotaging you, signs to look for if you have what I call an infection of your wound, and how it impacts your day-to-day life and the decisions you've been making. And you're not necessarily correlating these things together, but we're going to talk about it, because I really believe that the Lord wants there to be some healing that takes place in our generation. Because once you're healed, then you can go and do the thing inside that you are created to do, that the fear and the doubt and the worry that comes from not having a sense of worth, identity, protection, beauty may be blocking you from. So stick around. We're going to talk about it. And please feel free to leave us a message if this is something that has impacted you, or something that you want to say an encouraging word to someone else, or if you want to just say, hey, Tavoya, I didn't realize this was a thing. This could be me. Let's talk about it in the comments. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys soon.